Now, here's my problem. I do not sit on the fence. You guys know that. I don't sit on the fence. I give an opinion because I always have an opinion. I'm stuck. I'm stuck with Stipe and Overeem. I don't know what's going to happen. And there's a lot of reasons why this is a problem. It's a problem because it's not as simple as saying who the better fighter is, which is usually what you want to come up with. Well, this guy's better, so he's going to win. This is a matchup issue. Stipe can strike. Don't kid yourself. Ask Maldonado, who's a great boxer. Ask Verdum, who's a great Muay Thai fighter. Great, not good, great. Ask those guys. Yeah, he'll put you to sleep in the first round. Don't kid yourself. He's taking on Overeem, who without question is the most decorated striker in the UFC, not just in that division. If you go look at paper, you look at K1 championships, you look at Dutch kickboxing, you look at what he did, he's got more paper behind him than anybody in the company. This is going to be a stand-up fight. Even though Stipe's got the wrestling, it's not very conceivable that he's going to go out and tackle and smother Overeem for 25 minutes. First off, Stipe just doesn't do that. And second off, Overeem just doesn't let that happen to him. So now you've got two guys that are going to stand up. And forget about resumes. If you think for a second Stipe can't put Overeem to sleep, you're wrong. And if you think for a second Overeem can't put Stipe to sleep, you're wrong. And the odds makers see it that way too. I go to betdsi.com. Joel, you know this. I go every time before the show so I can tell people what's going on. Stipe was the favorite when this fight got announced. It went back to Overeem, it went to even money, and now it's back to Stipe. So the odds makers also don't know who's going to win this fight. This is a weird fight. It's a very close and weird fight. Front Row Brian's going to be calling in just a minute. We are going to get his take on it. In fact, he's calling in right now. Jacob, will you please connect him?
Yeah, I would tell people you might want to look at a different fight to bet on because heavyweight MMA it's so difficult to handicap. You can do all of your breakdowns and, you look at your fight metric stats and all this ridiculous stuff, and it means nothing if the other guy's fist touches the other guy's chin, or temple, for a split second. It all goes up in flames. I don't. These are both two very good guys, Alistair and Stipe Miocic. So I feel that I don't want to say any. One guy's going to be looking up with a guy with a flashlight in his eyes, but it's a pretty good possibility.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And early,
yes.
And early. It's likely to end in the first round.
And early, exactly. I look at Overeem's skill set, and I see the most complete guy in the division, even more so than Cain Velasquez. Because I see Overeem now, he's probably only about 242 pounds. So his cardio, he's not the same guy who gasped in 90 seconds of that fight in Boston when you choked out Shogun. He's a totally different guy. He can fight. He can fight for 25 minutes. And people at Jackson's, Coach Winklejohn, Greg Jackson, they've really reinvented this guy. And the problem is, heavyweight. Like I said, the glove touches that chin. Everything changes. But man, Overeem just looks so impressive with the way that game planning it and. His timing looks great, and, people underestimate his ability to grapple and wrestling. Miocic, he's got a lot of power in his hands. He's got a background as a wrestler. I don't think he uses it all that much. It's going to be decided in the stand-up, and, like I said, I wouldn't recommend betting on it.
Yeah, and see, I have the same assessment as you because it does also come down. It's not just who's a better fighter issue like most contests. There's a matchup thing that you have to look at here too because it is likely to be contested in the stand-up. Stipe, to your point, I'm just going to piggyback on what you said, but even with that college wrestling background, he isn't a guy that just goes and tackles people and keeps them there. He's chosen to use his hands and his speed and his footwork and these boxing skills, and if you look at him on paper, if you look at him in the octagon, Stipe can go with him. If you look at him on paper, there's nobody even close to as decorated as a stand-up fighter in that whole division as Reem.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and he'll even tell you that he's not the same striker. There is a very distinct Dutch style to kickboxing that he said that he was very much married to because of the camp that he formerly was a part of, Golden Glory, and then he went to the Black Zillions camp. But basically, it was the Overeem camp within the Black Zillions facility, and I don't think he really committed to changing what he did until he got out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I think he's a real a great example of a guy that changed what he did, and for the better. Now he's like this really smart, like technical fighter, and then at the moment's notice, he throws these left hooks and kicks, and he's the most diversified, best version of Alistair I think there's ever been.
Yeah, I think we saw that in his last fight. He's getting ready to fight Arlovsky, who's his teammate, and he dismissed him the whole time. I mean, Reem was doing everything he could to be a nice guy and still couldn't be when somebody asked about the fight. He's like, no, I got no problem here. And people would say, well, do you guys spar together? Do you work out? Like, no, man, we keep I got this. And Reem, he couldn't even put Arlovsky, who's a former champion, on the fence. He's like, no, I got this. And sure enough, he walks out there and he had it. But to your point, I mean, yeah, he is fighting at a different level. He's not the same guy that had problems, with the Travis Brown fight or punched himself out. He also did that to him. He did it twice in a row. He did it with Bigfoot as well, where he just got fatigued. But you don't see that anymore. And a lot of it is because he lost that weight. He got down to the low 240s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there was a sense of overconfidence, especially against Bigfoot. That was his first fight after the Brock Lesnar fight. But, this is a guy who can do everything. I think people, when he's done, I think people will look back and say, yeah, I mean, you go tool for tool, use a baseball type metaphor, and not many guys are better than he is when you take into account everything. I mean, he's a guy who competed very well at Abu Dhabi. Who would expect that from a Dutch kickboxer?
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And as much as we're saying that, I could tip the scale back into Stipe's favor. It is likely to be contested on the feet. I think Stipe's a little bit faster. That's maybe debatable. But if you were to see this going a decision, and we both agree that it's likely to be fireworks and end early, but let's say it goes a decision, you certainly got to bet the house on Stipe. I can't remember a time that Reem won a decision, largely because he doesn't go to him. He went on that run where he was choking everybody out with that guillotine, remember, over in Japan. Vitor was victim of, all sorts of, he was locking his hands and just popping their heads off almost. And then, he went through his knockout days, particularly through Strikeforce and early on in the UFC. So he doesn't go to a decision, so you'd have to assume, if it were to go to a decision, it's favoring Stipe.
Yeah, obviously, I'm a little biased towards Overeem, but, man, Stipe Miocic is really dangerous, too. But, who the hell knows? I mean, I didn't think Lesnar and Hunt was going to go 15 minutes. Alistair, there's a big feeling out process. There were portions of that fight against Dos Santos and Arlovsky that, quite frankly, were really boring. And you could see that he was fighting that way because he was looking for his opening, and he didn't want to exert that much energy.
Yeah, smart.
And I wonder if it's, we go into this fight thinking, oh, it's going to be fireworks. These guys are going to go right after each other. And, maybe we get this surprise that, it turns out to be this very slow, tactical stand-up fight where the difference in a round might be one or two strikes.
Yeah, I hear you there. And, if you tell me, if you think for a second that Overeem can't lay Stipe out cold, you're wrong. And if you think for a second that Stipe can't lay Overeem out cold, you're wrong. You're wrong. Stipe could knock his ass out, regardless of what it says on paper. Sure he can. He just did it. He just did it to the world champion Verdum. Sure he can.
Yeah, and the other thing that people are going to bring up is, Alistair's been knocked out, about a dozen times, if we're being honest here. But it's like, I don't think the guy's got a bad chin. It's just, if you get hit, when you're 250 pounds and another guy is 250 pounds and is a killer too, when he connects right, you're going to sleep.
Sure.
So I don't have any theory. I don't have any evidence. But I don't think Overeem's chin is an issue. I think it's just like Miocic's chin. If you hit it square, the guy's going to sleep.